Hello, guitar enthusiasts of every stripe and description. Once again, it's Steve, the original guitar nut. Welcome to Guitar Nuts Anonymous, episode 27. Lots of news, both in the greater world of guitars and in my personal world, and the greater cosmos, apparently. The big news, of course, over the last week has been that, aliens walk among us, or at least they are somewhere among us, even if it's in pieces. Do your own research. Guitars, that's why you're here, right? I've got just a ton of stuff to talk about. It's kind of exciting. First off, I mentioned in the last episode, there's a brand new sub company from Guitar Fetish, GFS, called SBS, Steve Brown Sound Guitars. And they had just come out with some new, very 80s influenced shredder models of guitars. And I said the only thing I wished is that they were available without Floyd Rose vibratos, because I don't do Floyds. And I made a comment saying as much on one of their YouTube videos. And none other than Steve Brown himself actually replied to my comment and said that hardtail versions of his guitars are going to be available in the spring of 2024. So that's kind of cool. I might just have to look into one of those. In much larger guitar world's news, companies, Fender has dropped a whole bunch of interesting things. Probably the most talked about, and you'll know this if you spend any time on YouTube at all, which you clearly do, is the reintroduction of the Tom DeLonge, or Delonge, depending on how you pronounce it. I think he pronounces it DeLonge. The Tom DeLonge Strat, which was out all the way back in the late 90s, if I recall. It's just a simple big headstock Strat with one, I think it was a Seymour Duncan Invader humbucker. Real simple guitar, but they went on to have a huge cult following and ridiculous prices, and Fender finally got their heads out of their proverbial behinds and decided to reissue it. I wish they'd do the same with the Squier Jazzmaster baritones, but they still seem clueless on that, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, yeah, the new Tom DeLonge Fender Strat. So that's real exciting to some people. I don't happen to be one of them. Slightly more exciting to me is a new replacement for their Ventera series of vintage-inspired guitars made in Mexico. They have the very creative series name of Ventera 2. The differences? I don't know. Probably some new finishes. I think I heard that they might have roasted maple necks. I have to double check on that. They do finally have a Jaguar, which they didn't before. Before, I believe it was Strat Tele, Jazzmaster, P-Bass, and now they've got Jaguars and Jazz basses as well. So that's cool. And one big difference is that they've done away with the Palfero fretboards, and they're finally back to real rosewood. So that's kind of cool for those of you out there that prefer the nice dark look and not the kind of whitish, dry, powdery looking fingerboards that Palfero seem to give. It is what it is. In a way off the wall Fender move, they've partnered with Logue, or Loog, the company that made these bizarre little three-stringed children's guitars, both electric and acoustic versions. They've partnered with Loog to come out with a three-string Strat and a three-string Tele, ostensibly for kids. Personally, I think I'd like to get a hold of one of them. I find limitations can actually open up a lot of creative ideas. And if I was stuck with just the top three strings, G, B, E, of a guitar to work with, I think it might open up my mind to a whole lot of different shape possibilities for chords and things that I could then translate over to my regular guitar playing. I just think it'd be kind of neat. So yeah, check out the Loog Strat and Tele if you're interested. Over to the Gibson side of things. Gibson proper doesn't have much new to speak of, but Epiphone does. They're celebrating their 150th anniversary with a line of 4 reissues of guitars that were never part of the Gibson lineup, that were actual original Epiphone designs, so to speak. Of course, Gibson purchased Epiphone in 1959 and made them in America exclusively until the late 60s when they went to Japan, and since then Korea, China, and probably some other places as well, Indonesia, except for a brief period in like 1982-83 when there were a few American-made Epiphones that popped up, but they're few and far between. But anyway, these 150th anniversary, they look cool. It's neat finishes. I believe they have a Broadway model, and let's see what else. Maybe a Wilshire. There's a picture. I've got it posted. They're interesting enough. They're not cheap. They're all over $1,000, but well, hopefully hopefully they're worth it. Epiphone is certainly capable of making really good guitars. I guess time will tell if these are included in that. Over to the amplifier side of the world, Orange has introduced a new amp called the OR30. It's a 30-watt all-tube one-channel amp, 40 pounds, and it's going to cost a little over $2,000. Now, that sounds like a lot of bread to me for a one-channel amp, even if it is all tubes and ostensibly handmade and whatnot. But compared to boutique amps, I guess it's affordable. I've seen a few videos. They do seem to sound fantastic. So if that's something you're into. Oh, and by the way, I saw a test done. I can't remember which channel, but it's not important. Testing one of these OR30s. And at 30 watts, they were able to get it up to 117 decibels, which is enough to cause permanent hearing damage in 5 minutes. Which is to say, this will keep up with any drummer and stand its own alongside 50 and 100 watt heads. Apparently, there's a lot more going on when you're figuring overall volume than just wattage. Certainly, transformers and things make a big difference, more than meets the eye. And these things have huge transformers, which explains the 40-pound weight. So, yeah, Orange. Over to Marshall, one of the world's largest amp companies, of course. They've released a new series called the Studio JTM, which is both a head and cabinet and a combo version. It harkens back to the very first Marshall amps ever made, the original JTM series. Very classic appearance, the black and cream look, and the tweedy cabinet covering and grill cloth covering, I should say. I've watched many videos of these, including Pete Thorne did a really good demo video on it. And I have to say, these new 20-watt Marshalls sound absolutely fantastic. They're not cheap, but they're not terribly expensive either. I think I saw the heads are going for something like $1,200. Combo's a little more. And if you go to Sweetwater, they're selling the heads and cabs as a package deal where you save a couple $100, I think. Maybe I'll include a link down below to that if I can remember. So there's that. Back to guitars for a moment. I saved one last guitar news thing specifically for a good reason. At Squier, Fender's snotty little brother, they've come out with a whole range of new colors for the Sonic series. Even though the Sonic series is brand new anyway, they're flooding the market with a bunch of new colors and doing something similar with the Paranormal series, a couple of new colors, at least a transparent blue they're using on a lot of them. Looks pretty sharp, actually. But yeah, the Sonic series especially, they've got a very lurid green, and well, here, take a look, and kind of cool. Speaking of Sonic series, I of course purchased Sonic Series Squier H. I talked about it on the show in the past. I did an unboxing video, which I saved to pair with a review video, which I did, that wound up having unusable audio. And when I decided to go back and redo it, I found that I just did not have it in me to be bothered to do it again. So I can tell you this. I took it and used it for a practice. I took it and used it for a gig. Okay? Absolutely nothing about this guitar that I can say that's negative. It's $200, totally serviceable. Fretwork is impeccable. No high frets, no sharp ends, nothing scratchy. Pickup is unremarkable, but does the job. Everything works as it should. How's it sound? Well, it sounds like any other, I hate to use the term generic, but a generic single humbucker. You know what? Let me just step out of frame here for a moment. Flip on my Boss Katana. Let's see here. It sounds fine. It's a bit trebly, if I'm honest, but apart from that, yeah, it sounds fine. Works great. I stand by my prediction. The Fender's going to sell absolute boatload of these damn things. Not just this model, but the whole series. Especially with the holiday season coming. Although they are going to face some pretty stiff competition from a lot of these off-brands that are selling on Amazon. Because as I've mentioned before, some of this Amazon stuff is seriously good. Especially at the price point. Specifically, the stuff coming from IYV, Inyenvina, which we're going to talk about at length here in a moment, but really good stuff. Also, some stiff competition from Firefly. Some Fireflies can be great. I hear they're a bit inconsistent, but the ones I've had have been great. I've had a 335 style, and I still have basically a 6-string bass. They call it a baritone, but it's tuned to E to E from the factory. Real happy with them. Sometimes you need a bit of setup work. They usually need a bit of setup work. Maybe a couple of high frets. But in general, they're good. So what I'm saying is Fender's going to have some competition, but I think they're going to sell a boatload of these Sonic Series instruments. I apologize for not putting up a full review of that guitar, but a bunch of people beat me to the punch anyway. There are literally dozens of reviews, especially of this particular. It seems that this Squier H has been like the star of the Sonic Series release. There's just a lot of people have reviewed them, and most favorably. I did see one that said it was crap and they were going to send it back, but I'm guessing that's not endemic of any greater situation. I think it's just a bit of inconsistency, which you'll have when you're having thousands of something made overseas, in China or whatever. Or in the case of these, I think these are actually Indonesian. But it is what it is. All right, so that's the greater world guitar news. Now on to the Steve news. I received the Chibson Les Paul from a anonymous benefactor of the show. Send it out. You can actually see it over here. It's a Les Paul Custom. I am going to be doing a full review of this, but I will give you a spoiler. This is a fantastic guitar for $200 shipped. Speechless. I don't want to give away too much because I, want you to watch the actual review, but it has some features that I just honestly can't even believe at $149 plus $45 shipping. It's just fantastic. And I will be willing to share the AliExpress store with you because I can't promise yours is going to be like this, but This wasn't handpicked. This wasn't custom ordered. This is just something that a friend of the show chose because he thought it looked cool. And apparently now on my recommendation, he's ordering one for himself as well. I asked him if he just wanted me to send him this one. He told me to just hang on to it, that it would probably cost nearly as much to ship it to the UK as it would cost for him to order one for himself. So you know who you are. I can't thank you enough. This is actually going to get used at a future ray gun gig, which I'm going to talk more about ray gun in a moment here. All right. So I mentioned IYV, Inyenvina guitars. They are from Vietnam. And I had mentioned in a previous episode that I was having them custom build me on the recommendation of Richard James, the Bald Shredder. Check out his channel if you haven't already. One of the most entertaining channels on YouTube, my personal opinion. He ordered a custom Inyenvina, which he's reviewed, and it was great. And on his recommendation, I ordered what's basically, I call the SUPARIC. You think Super Strat back in the 80s, this would be the equivalent if someone tried to make a Super Rickenbacker copy. Solid body, humbuckers, almost a shred guitar that just happens to look like a Rick. It's kind of something sort of a dream guitar of mine. Now, if you order a guitar from these guys, I'll just say this in advance. Make sure you give them as many photos, specs, measurements, everything, so you get exactly the guitar you want. I purposely chose to be more general because I wanted to see what I would get if I didn't specify neck width, neck thickness, things of that nature. I specified my hardware, my pickups, body shape and things like that, but I left a lot to, their whim. I'm recommending that you don't, unless you want to be like me and roll the dice and just see what you get. But from what I understand from everyone that I've heard on the IYV Facebook groups, I've belonged to a couple of, and from the Bald Shredder, they will take all of your, suggestions, demands, whatever you want to call it, into account and give you exactly what you want. They're very accommodating. But I made my order a week ago and patiently waited, and I was very excited to get basically a blueprint, a CNC drawing, whatever you want to call it. Well, here it is. Take a look. Very exciting to me. And it looks exactly like what I had in mind. So I'm pretty stoked, if I'm honest here. I really want to see this thing. And they told me I'd have pictures of the guitar in progress to approve this week. So by the time you see me again, well, you'll probably see me talking about that in a review video between. But by the time episode 28 gets posted, maybe next week, I should have photos to share with you. And pretty excited about it, so there's that. Now, I've taken some of the viewer suggestions and come up with some new segment ideas. And so I'm going to introduce a few of those here now. One is gig news. People want to know more about my cover band Ray Gun. All the alternative dark hits of 1977 to 1987 is our slogan, although we actually play some material that's earlier and later than those dates, but it's a generality. We play here in Nashville. Specifically, we play a lot in East Nashville because that's where all the cool kids live. We just played a gig at the 5 Spot, which for a very long time, especially pre-COVID, was sort of our house gig where we were playing monthly. Although it looks like we're getting back to that possibility there. We just played a gig which may very well have been our best gig to date. It was very exciting. Had a great crowd, very enthusiastic crowd. We pulled off some new material. I used, of all things, one of my little Fender Mustang 1 practice amps as my stage amp with a very basic pedal board, and I played my Gretsch Tim Armstrong signature country club huge bodied guitar. I'd show it to you, but it's downstairs at the moment in the workshop. Great gig. If I can get a hold of a decent piece of video, I'll attach it to the end of this, because that's something that several of you have asked for. They'd like to see a little bit of live video of ray gun in action. If I can get something in time to attach to this today, I will. If not, certainly future episode. So there's that. Yeah, so there's our gig news. Cool gadget alert. This is another new thing that I want to talk about. If a new pedal, a new item, whatever comes out, I'd like to be able to share it with you. And in this particular case, an item came out that I'm in love with this stinking thing. I had mentioned in episode 27 that it had been Amazon Prime Day, which is actually 2 days, but that's neither here nor there. And that I hadn't really bought much music related, but there was one thing that I did order, and I have to confess I ordered specifically because it looked cool or funky, or basically it looked like a 1980s Texas Instruments Speak and Spell. It's this. This is the Kaleen Lorcan desktop practice amplifier. It's orange, it's plastic. It's 2 little 3-inch speakers. 2 channels, or at least a channel with a distortion built in with a gain and built-in delay. Looks silly, runs on batteries, or it recharges. There's a built-in dry battery as well. And trying to think, I believe these are $89 right now. I bought mine for $69 because it was, Prime Day. This crazy little thing sounds absolutely fantastic. I was floored. I'm going to do a review of this, or if you think I should do a review of this, if you're interested, let me know. Even if you have to pay the $90, in my opinion, it's totally worth having one of these on your desktop. And since you can, charge it, you can take it with you. If you've got one of those little wireless rigs with the 2 little, bugs, you can even have a wireless rig that's totally portable. Take it with you to the campground, to work. Keep it in your car for if you're stuck in a traffic jam. Whatever it is, it sounds great. It's way louder than you'd ever believe looking at the size of the thing. It's even pedal board friendly. You could rig this up with your pedal board and use the internal effects, because it does have an output if you had a reason to. It even has jacks on the side to power other pedals. I mean, they thought of everything. It's just a cool gadget, and I'll put a link to it down below to Amazon. The Kaleen Lorcan desktop practice amp. I love this thing. And anything I can get enthusiastic about these days, I'm going to share with you, because I don't get enthusiastic about much anymore. All right, so one thing that I mentioned in episode 27 was the fact that I'd like you, viewers, to be more, inclusive in the show, to take part, audience participation. And I said to that end, if you had things you wanted to share, pictures, things, send them on in, and we'll share. So we'll start. Viewer and friend of the show, Percival Durham, got a hold of me and said, just purchased a Reverend Airline 12-string, which he basically described as like a modern day, updated rethinking of a RIC 12. He says it plays fantastic, it sounds fantastic, and as you can see in this photo here of this happy camper, it looks really sharp. I watched a couple of YouTube review videos of these things, and every one I've seen was positive. So congratulations to you, Percival Durham, and yeah, nice guitar. Thanks for sharing. Also, a friend of the show, Sharon, said, I thought you might be interested in seeing my partner Sean's turquoise green, rare color, 620 Rickenbacker from 1997. He sold his record collection about 7 years ago and used the proceeds to buy it. He's glad he got it when he did, because anything Rickenbacker related is very hard to get here in Australia, which is where they're from. And she shared a couple of photos here, so take a look here. I actually had the opportunity to buy a 360 in this finish from my friend Tom, hi Tom, a few years back, and I wish I had, because A, it was cool, B, I would have found a way to absorb the cost. You know, I mean, at the time it seemed like it was too extravagant, but I would have survived, you know what I mean? And C, they're worth a whole lot more money now, which, sorry Tom, you should have waited too. But regardless, beautiful guitar, so thanks for sharing, Sharon. Thanks for sharing, Sharon. Share alike. So anyway, if you have anything you'd like to share with the show, by all means, you know, contact me. The old email still works, rickenbackeranonymous@gmail.com. You can also send any suggestions you have for the show, virtually anything, you know, photos of naked grandma butts if you so feel the need. I can't stop you. So there's that. Also, of course, I have to say, you know, like, subscribe if you haven't already, click the notification bell, comment. All these things make a big difference. We're coming very close to approaching that 500 viewer mark. And when we do, I plan to give something away. And when we eventually hit the 1,000 subscriber mark, I'm going to be giving away something fairly substantial. That's all I'm going to say about it. But it'll be cool. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed, do. On my Squier Rascal bass review video, I got over 8,000 views. Sure would like to see more of those views turn into, you know, subscribers. So yeah, you know, tell a friend, share some of this stuff. Whatever you can do, it's appreciated. Now, speaking of show and tell, as we were, I've got a bit of show and tell of my own to do. This isn't the sort of thing that happens every day, obviously, but it's the sort of thing that happens more in Nashville than probably anywhere else, which is cool stuff popping up on either Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, whatever the case is. In this particular instance, I answered an ad for a really cool looking customized parts caster Strat. I'm not a Strat guy, but this particular one looked really cool. So, and it was cheap. So I reached out to the guy. He lived down the town of Murfreesboro nearby. Said, hey, I'm interested in this Strat. I want to check it out. He said, sorry, just sold, but I have lots of other customized guitars down here that I'm selling cheap. Come on down. I want to share my blessing with you. So I was a bit intrigued. Made the drive down to Murfreesboro. And this guy proceeded to pull out no less than a dozen Stratocasters. They're all parts guitars that he had assembled himself from various components. A dozen of them. And said, which ones do you want? And I said, how much? And I'm not going to tell you the amount that he gave me. But first let me show you a couple of these, okay? Let's start with this one. This one's still going to need some work. It's a super lightweight body, big headstock. I've got to assume these are Squiers. It's got a Z serial number, so yeah. The only thing I can say about this one, it's got actual EMG pickups in it, if you can imagine that. Although they're the EMG passives, there's no battery. And Music Ninja tuners, locking tuners, okay? And a fake Yngwie Malmsteen decal on the headstock. This guitar needs fretwork because the fret is incredibly, nut work because the nut is incredibly high. Apart from that, it's a very cool guitar. And just your basic Strat. but I like this one because of the EMG pickups, which probably cost more than the 4 guitars that I went home with from this guy's house. Second in line, this very relic looking Strat with the Buddha pickguard. This has a Babbitt's High Mass Stratocaster bridge and genuine hip shot tuners and a very aged, obviously, you know, fake logoed and fake aged neck, but this has actual Fender noiseless pickups in it. Again, this Babbitt's bridge sold new for more than I gave for these 4 Strats. He didn't want more. I tried to talk him out of selling them so cheap, and he said, no, I want them going, I want you to have them. So, Strat number 2. Over to Strat number 3. This one he did kind of a metal foil body thing on. And again, a different model of Babbitt's High Mass Strat bridge. This one doesn't have special tuners, but this is actually a neck off of one of the rare, well, rare-ish S-series Squiers that came out in the, if I remember correctly, the early 90s, that actually said Fender on the headstock with a little Squier decal on the end. And these are Aripure, A-R-I-P-U-R-E pickups that actually sound really good. So there's that, Strat number 3. Now I should point out, the reason I wanted these specific Strats is because I wanted to cannibalize them for their incredibly good quality parts that I'll either use for other projects or I might wind up selling on Reverb some of the stuff. Again, he was selling it at a ridiculous price, but if I hadn't bought it, someone else would have. And I gave him what he wanted. I offered more, and he said, no, we're fine. So that's what those 3 Strats are about, was just basically, they were great parts. I wanted them for parts. Strat number 4, however, I got because I wanted it. This has Destiny CNC wound pickups, which are Inyenvina pickups with push-pull coil taps. I will say it's wired backwards. This is the bridge pickup and this is the neck, but that's not important. Has a standard Squier trim, vibrato, and of all things, an almost brand new Squier Jazzmaster neck. This guitar plays phenomenally well and sounds fantastic. I'm keeping this one to play for the band, with the band. For the first several days that I owned this guitar, I practically couldn't put it down. It was all that I played for several days. It's that good. Yeah. And again, all 4 of these Strats were sold to me for less than the cost of one of those Babbitt's bridges. Why? I have no idea. But I made a friend, and I even dropped off some of my surplus Strat parts that I had in my collection, accumulation, whatever, to him to use for future projects. Just to be a nice guy, and well, frankly, because I kind of felt bad. He should have asked for more money, but he didn't want my money. So, it was a blessing indeed, so thank you. And I'm not going to give his name, but thanks. I'll use them, certainly, especially that one. That one's going to get played. So anyway, there's the show and tell segment. It went a little longer than I expected, but I had to share these with you. It's an exciting thing. And again, only in Nashville. They call it Guitar Town for a reason. Finally, I mentioned in episode 27 that I was considering moving the camera down to the workbench and sharing some of my actual amateur lutherie with you if you're interested. And I got several positive responses saying, yeah, we'd love to see your workbench and see you work on some things. So to that end, I'm going to be doing a video featuring me installing a B-bender on an inexpensive, well, ostensibly a Telecaster, but it's basically been made into an Squier. A Tele, putting a B-bender on it. And I think that'll be interesting to watch, and then I'll be able to demonstrate the B-bender and let you hear what the thing sounds like. So thank you to all of you who messaged in to tell me, yeah, we'd be very interested in seeing you do some work on the workbench. So you're going to get what you asked for. And to that end, if you have any other suggestions, something you'd like to see, something you'd like reviewed, there's not a lot I can do in terms of what I can review because I can't really be throwing around money I don't have to buy things to review. But at some point in time, if enough of us make enough noise, manufacturers are going to start to notice us. I realize it's still very much a baby channel, but I think I've got some of the best viewers, certainly some of the best subscribers. You folks actually interact with me. We have kind of a community here, and I think it's cool. And I think, I'm sure eventually we're going to get noticed. And I fully expect that at some point in time, I'm finally going to have that one video that just explodes and goes semi-viral, and suddenly I will have enough subscribers to get the attention of some of these manufacturers, and they can start to send me some stuff to review for you guys. But in the meanwhile, I'll do whatever I can. So if you have any suggestions, even new segment ideas, get a hold of me, let me know. rickenbackeranonymous@gmail.com. We're about to hit 38 minutes. That's longer than I want to go with a regular episode. So until I see you next, which should be reviewing that Les Paul Custom right there, stay cool, stay frosty, be good to yourself and others. If you're crying out loud, play the damn guitar. I'll see you again very soon. Steve, out.